Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted that you are joining us in our efforts to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is recording artist JJ Heller and her husband Dave, here to celebrate their beautiful picture book, Hand to Hold. Before we invite JJ and Dave into the studio, we want to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. There's so much there. If you are an author, you want to check it out and find out about our Certified Great Read program. Find out how we can help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. If you're a parent, you absolutely want to sign up for our newsletter. Find out what's coming up on the show. Find out what you might have missed. And download a whole lot of great things. And there's so much more coming this summer. And if you are an educator or a librarian, you absolutely want to check out our live events. Find out how we can bring an exciting, magical event to your community or to create a beautiful online virtual literacy fair. It's all available at readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from right outside of Nashville in Tennessee, our guests today are the authors of a beautiful picture book called Hand to Hold. Please welcome to the show Dave and JJ Heller. My friends, how are you?
We're doing great.
Yes, it's a lovely morning.
Well, I was just sharing with Dave and JJ that it is a lovely morning here in Boston. It's a little hot. I think the tires in my van are melting on the pavement, but otherwise it's a beautiful day to be alive here. And I think that's one of the takeaways from Hand to Hold, that it's really beautiful to be alive.
That's right. I think, I'm a type of person who can tend to worry a lot. And one thing I found that's so helpful is to just have a heart full of gratitude. And in order to do that, I have to slow myself down and notice all the amazing things that surround me every day. And my kids are really good at helping me do that. They're always pointing out, oh, look at that bird, Mom, building a nest. Or look at these potato bugs on the sidewalk. This one's name is Fred. And so the book is kind of a celebration of that, just the spirit of wonder that our children have just naturally inside of them.
Dave, JJ makes a great point, and I think as parents, especially of young kids, we're always so worried. We have to take care of this kid, and there's so much that I need to teach this kid, and this kid is depending on me for everything, and it's such an immense responsibility. Sometimes we forget that life can be really wonderful when we kind of relax and remember that our kids have a lot to show us and to teach us.
I think that's really true. And we, as parents, we can spend a lot of time giving instruction and very well-structured little mini lectures to our kids. And it seems like most of the times those aren't the memories that they take with them. Like a lot of the time it's the unstructured, stepping outside, going for a walk. This past week, we rescued a little snapping turtle that was in the road in front of our house, and we didn't want it to get run over, and I didn't want it to get my fingers snapped, and so I scooped up the snapping turtle with a snow shovel, and we walked it over to like the little pond that's near our house, and I feel like that's a memory that our kids are going to take with them far more than a dad lecture that I give to them mm-hmm. with wonderful life lessons that I have planned.
That's a beautiful story. It's kind of surprising. I mean, what in the world are you doing with the snow shovel in Tennessee? Do you really need one of those?
I know. In Tennessee, it's like every 3 winters or so, it'll snow pretty significantly. And so it snows just enough to kind of be fun, but not enough for the city to have snow plows. So there are a lot of snow days that normally happen. Like if there's the threat of snow, schools will be closed, and which all the kids love, of course.
Yes, I do educational magic shows at schools, and for the most part, the majority of my shows are up in the Northeast corridor. But occasionally I've toured down south, and I remember the first time I was touring in Virginia, and I got a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up, and the school was telling me that school was canceled. And I looked out the window, and I said, why? And they said, it might snow. And I'm like, okay, I just came from Syracuse where, it did snow 20 inches and they still had school.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the school bus drivers out here are not used to handling any kind of ice or anything like that, and so the school system is overly cautious.
Yes.
But it keeps the kids safe. Unfortunately, it sometimes keeps the school magicians unemployed.
This is true, but we're at the bottom of the ladder when it comes to priorities, and that's where we should be. Kids and their safety should absolutely be first. I was watching the video trailer for Hand to Hold, and it's just beautiful. The illustrations, first off, the illustrations are magnificent. Can you tell us a little bit about your illustrator?
Yeah, so we looked at a lot of different illustrators. Our publisher just sent us a lot of options, and when we saw Alyssa's work, we just fell in love with it. And it turns out that she has a background in animation, and so that really comes through on the illustrations. Where Dave actually has a background in photography, and so we were looking for an illustrator who really knew how to work with light, because it just adds so much emotion and interest to the illustrations, and Alyssa was just really good at that.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with her. The book is based on song lyrics from a song that existed prior to the book, and so as we made our way through the book and kind of crafted this storyline, this journey of a girl and her mom going through their day and having like a little adventure and bonding moments along the way, we felt like Alyssa had a wonderful way of finding the perfect still frame, that just like if you were to watch a Pixar movie and you grabbed that most exciting still frame from a scene, it's like every spread is just like that. It's wonderful. It's filled with emotion, and we feel like parents and kids are really going to enjoy flipping their way through Hand to Hold.
Absolutely, and that the last kind of frame, the last few seconds of the video trailer is, letting the little girl know that mom's always going to be there with a hand to hold. Mm-hmm. And that's really comforting, I think, and such a wonderful message to share with kids.
Yeah, I think, when we sat down to write the song a couple of years ago, we were just thinking, we have 2 little girls, and our hearts are so full of love for them that sometimes it's hard to express. So, I mean, like, you get to the end of the day, you're going through the bedtime routine, everybody's tired. And we just thought, okay, if we are able to sit down and really think about, like, what are the words that we want to speak over our children? Like, what do we want to express to them? What do we want them to know? And that's kind of where the chorus of the song came from, which is also in the book. And it says, "May you never lose the wonder in your soul. May you always have a blanket for the cold. May the living light inside you be the compass as you go. May you always know you have my hand to hold."
It's beautiful. Beautiful. And it's a beautiful song, but it's also a beautiful story. And When you were sitting down and writing the song originally, did you envision that this might make for a great children's book?
We didn't, but it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think normally when we write a song, it's really just so much about the audience that we're trying to speak to. And the concept that we had going in was to write a sort of benediction, a kind of blessing that a parent could speak over their child on a regular basis. But you want that message to be full of meaning, but you also want it to be full of tangible things that a child can easily latch onto. And so the opening verse is, trees are made for climbing, days are made for sun, puddles are for jumping, fields are made to run. And it's very concrete in the imagery. It's taking a kid through their everyday experience. And I think what ended up happening is the husband of somebody who worked with our publisher heard the song and said, this would be an amazing children's book. And kept bugging his wife and saying, like, you need to get in touch with J.J. Heller. Like, this needs to be a book. And so when they reached out to us, we said that's going to be an amazing children's book. Unfortunately, the song is a little bit short, so we had to come up with some new
additional words to kind of round it out.
So I suppose that is fortunately, because what we ended up doing is kind of taking the different seasons of the year and kind of walking through spring and summer and winter, and the way that a parent can be with their child through the seasons of the year as well.
JJ, what was that like, taking a project that you had completed and probably, sang at concerts and loved, and then having somebody come up to you and say, okay, this is wonderful, but it's not done. You need more.
I at first it was a little intimidating because it did feel already like a complete thought. But when I'm writing a song, I know that it's only going to be about 3.5 minutes long. And so there's only so many words you can put into it. And in terms of a song, it was already a pretty wordy song. But I think it was I didn't feel intimidated or threatened by it or insulted, like it's not enough. Because I understood that, they wanted the book to be a certain length. And so instead it just felt like a really fun challenge. And I think as songwriters, it's often the limitations that force us to be the most creative. I think when you have to have a rhyme scheme that rhymes over and over, there's a limited amount of choices that you have. And so you have to get really creative to figure out, okay, what could work here? And then because of those limitations, you come up with something really incredible.
And unexpected.
Yeah. And so I think that expanding the song into a book was another one of those challenges, because in our mind, it already felt like a complete thought. And so we thought, what could we do? Like, what more could we add? And then we just had the idea to kind of include the different seasons of the year. And that also made for some really beautiful illustrations, because there's a scene with the falling leaves and then the snow, and there's this really cute little dog character that we included. And we, even though in the book he doesn't have a name, in our minds the dog's name is Charlie. And so Charlie's in almost every scene, and that was kind of, I think, a little bit for our girls, because they love dogs. And so we thought, like, this will be another special little element that each child, as they're reading the book, can point out, there's Charlie, what is Charlie doing? He's carrying a stick in his mouth, or, he has bubbles on his nose.
That's neat. Dave, what's it like writing songs with your wife?
Oh, it's, fortunately, our career has been approximately 20 years, so I've had a lot of practice. When we first started out, it was a very delicate process, and I think I wasn't very practiced at providing her with compliments when something needed to change. And so I had a way of hurting her feelings on a regular basis. But over time, we've really managed to kind of find the roles that each of us play when it comes to composing a song. And JJ is very much a detail person. What I like to say is she's down in the grass with a magnifying glass, and she's looking very closely at the ways that the words sound and the meaning that's going on in these different sentences and phrases that she's composing. And a lot of the time, I'm up in the clouds, kind of like looking down from 10,000 feet and kind of organizing the way that everything kind of fits together. So I kind of take on this editor role, and she takes on this artist role. And then every once in a while, if I'm able to get a phrase or a sentence in, I feel really proud of myself because, like, I made a contribution.
That's highlight.
An artistic contribution. But then the other thing that we do out here in Nashville quite a bit is we actually co-write with a lot of other songwriters. And this book actually came from a song that was written with another friend of ours, or the song was written with a friend of ours, Andy Gullahorn. And what's wonderful about having a third person is they end up being the tiebreaker. It's like if I have a good idea and JJ has a good idea and we're both trying to
we each think that our idea is good and the other one thinks it's not so good.
Right, yeah. Then there's one other person to kind of break that tie.
It's very helpful.
And Andy in this case was incredibly instrumental in the song coming into its own. So it's an unusual way to compose a book, but it's a very special song. And Hand to Hold has actually, we were looking at the numbers, it's been streamed since it came out in 2018. It's been streamed over 10 million times. So there are a lot of moms and kids and dads who have heard this song and feel like it has a special place in their heart.
Yeah. That's amazing. When you think about those numbers, 10 million times that a family has listened to this song together. Dave, you were mentioning your writing process and writing with your friend, and I know that it is very typical, especially in the Nashville area, for artists to come together and write with different partners. And that's not something that I hear authors doing. And I'm wondering, do you think that might be something that an author might want to investigate, sitting down and, hey, let's see if I can get together with a buddy and come up with a book and see what might come from a collaboration?
I mean, I think on like the business side of it makes things more complicated in terms of who gets what percentage and all of that. But I think artistically speaking, I know that whenever we write, it's so good to have another voice in there because, everyone's familiar with writer's block and you get stuck somewhere and you just keep coming up with the same possible solutions and none of them feel right. And that's what's so great about having another brain in the room because they'll think of something that you would never think of. And maybe they'll throw out a suggestion and perhaps that's not the one that sticks, but that suggestion sparks your idea. And maybe that one doesn't stick, but the one that you throw out sparks another idea. And then we've found that we've come up with really strong material because of all of the voices in the room. And it just feels like it's a lot easier to keep the momentum going and the inspiration flowing because there are three voices saying, okay, well, what about this? Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And then you just kind of keep flowing with it.
I think the other thing, though, is that a lot of writers actually do have another voice that they have to listen to, who's their editor, and they're also working with an illustrator, and what it comes down to is the willingness to be a team member rather than a dictator, and in the world of music, even after you've written a song, normally you go into the studio and you're working with people who can play instruments that you can't play, and a producer who can run software that you don't know how to run. And what we found over 20 years of music making is that when we actually let people who are better at their craft contribute to the thing that we're making, it lifts the quality of the art that ends up being released. And so we're actually huge advocates of collaboration because it makes for better art in the long run.
Yeah. I think that's something that's hard for a lot of artists to grab onto, especially folks who are used to sitting down in a room with a keyboard and it's just them and they push out something, it goes to an editor. But, the grind, they think of themselves. And it sounds like it's really beneficial that you both have that experience of going into a studio and working with a team. Your band, might be the J.J. Heller Band, or you might be the name on stage, but you are very much aware in your own mind that you're not alone, that there's a guitarist and a keyboardist and drummers and producers and a sound tech out there who, if the sound tech doesn't make the right choices, I'm not going to sound good to the audience.
Yeah.
Well, think about any movie that you love, and then you wait till the end of the movie and read every name in those credits. An army,
thousands of people
put that thing together. And it's kind of miraculous to get that many people working on a single thing to bring it to completion. But your favorite films were not made by just one person. If they did, they would be 100 years old because there's too much work to do all of those jobs. And so you do the thing, you bring what you have to the task. And let other people contribute as well. And
I think, that perspective has come to both of us the older we've gotten. 'Cause we're both 40 now and we've been making and producing music for over 15 years. And at the beginning, it was very important for both of us individually to say, oh, I made that part. This is mine. You can't, nobody else can touch this because I want to own it. I want to take all the credit. And I think just through the years, we've seen that when we allow people who are more talented than we are to give their input on the thing that we're creating, it makes for a better product. And if our goal is to serve our audience, and to bring them something beautiful, something that has meaning and brings value to their lives, then we're going to invite as many people as we can into the process who are really good at what they do. Because our goal now is to serve the song or the book more than to serve our own egos. And
our hope, I think, also is just to make something that lasts. Our hope is that when we release a lullaby album, that the children who listen to it today will play those songs for their children in 20, 25 years. And that's our heart for this book, that the kids who go to sleep reading Hand to Hold will eventually have a copy that they'll be able to read to their kids as well.
What a beautiful thought. Now, we mentioned music, and JJ, I was sharing with JJ that her album is on my Amazon Music app on my phone, and I know that the song When I'm With You made a big impact on my life when I heard it. And so just talk a little bit about your music and where folks can go to find out more about your music, and then we're going to find out where we can find out about the book.
Sure. Well, the best place to go is jjheller.com, and there are links to Spotify, Amazon Music, and there's also links to be able to go pre-order the book. It comes out on July 20th. And I have an Instagram and a Facebook, and but jjheller.com is the best place to get all that information.
But the amazing thing to me right now in the world of music is the magic of voice assistants. Like if you have Amazon Music, if you have Spotify or Apple Music, whatever the service is, you can just say, hey Alexa, hey Siri, play JJ Heller, and instantaneously you will start hearing
my
JJ's
voice will fill your living room.
It's an incredible thing. Any time that happens, I'm like, we live in the future, people. This is miraculous.
Yes, the idea that when I moved, when I was a youngster, almost 100 years ago, when I had to move apartments, my albums took up most of the space. If there were 15 boxes, 5 of them were filled with record albums. And now I can carry around every song in the world in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, so if a guest wants to hear, or if your audience wants to hear Hand to Hold, all they have to do is say, hey Siri, play Hand to Hold by JJ Heller. It'll do it. Oops. Looks like my computer might be doing it right now.
To play. Okay. It works too well.
Just one last question. You shared that the book, you had to expand on the finished product or the finished song. Any thoughts of going back into the studio and just taking the whole book and put it to music?
Oh, wow. I hadn't considered that. I think it might just make too long of a song. It would probably, be like a 6-minute song.
What we might end up doing eventually is creating a spoken piece that's actually like JJ speaking the book with illustrations or something like that.
With like instrumental music behind that.
So like nice. if the publisher is up for us creating something like that, that might be sort of the final cap of creative content that comes out of this song. But we actually have 2 versions of Hand to Hold already. It was first a single. JJ releases a new song on the first Friday of every month. And so in 2018, I think, Hand to Hold was one of those songs. And then a little bit later, we made a lullaby record, and Hand to Hold has an orchestral version that's on I Dream of You Volume 2. So it already exists twice. So a third version, the extra long version of Hand to Hold might be a little too much.
Well, we've had a wonderful time speaking to the authors of Hand to Hold, a beautiful bedtime picture book from our guests, JJ Heller and Dave Heller. My friends, thank you so much for being on the Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Thanks
for having us.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Carly Schuler. She'll be here to celebrate Hoot Reading. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guests, JJ and Dave Heller. Be sure to check out Hand to Hold and also check out JJ's music. She is amazing. Also want to thank my team, Alana Doherty, Fatima Khan, Helen Frazier, Justina Thompson. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.